What if everything you thought you knew about morality, about justice, and about the very fabric of society was built on a foundation of sand? What if a story, ancient yet terrifyingly relevant, holds the key to understanding the hidden forces that corrupt from within? Prepare yourself, for we are about to uncover a truth so profound it has been whispered through generations, a truth that reveals the source of perversion and the ultimate consequences of defiance. This is not just a tale, it is a chilling mirror reflecting the darkest corners of human nature, and a stark warning for all who dare to look away. Imagine cities bathed in the golden glow of prosperity, their markets bustling, their coffers overflowing. Sodom and Gomorrah, names now synonymous with ruin, once stood as beacons of wealth and influence. From the outside, they appeared magnificent monuments to human achievement. Yet, beneath this glittering facade, a sinister current flowed, a tide of depravity that gnawed at the very soul of their inhabitants. Their success had bred an arrogance, a profound disregard for any law beyond their own desires. Every street, every home, every interaction was tainted by an unseen corruption, a perversion of natural order that had taken root deep within their collective consciousness. They reveled in their transgressions, openly defying the moral compass that once guided humanity. This wasn't merely a lapse in judgment, it was a deliberate embrace of the forbidden, a celebration of acts that would shock even the most hardened observer. Their wealth, their comfort, their very existence was built upon a foundation of moral decay, a festering wound that would soon erupt. Into this cesspool of moral decay, a solitary figure emerged, a beacon of light in a world shrouded in darkness. His name was Lot, a man of unwavering faith and profound wisdom, chosen by the Almighty to deliver a message of truth and guidance. He was no stranger to the ways of righteousness, having journeyed alongside his venerable uncle, Abraham, a patriarch whose legacy echoed through the ages. Lot arrived in Sodom not as a conqueror, but as a compassionate guide, his heart heavy with the burden of his mission. He witnessed firsthand the grotesque tapestry of their daily lives, the open displays of indecency, the casual cruelty, the utter disregard for human dignity. With a voice filled with both sorrow and hope, he began his arduous task, gently reminding them of the path of rectitude, of the divine laws that governed all creation. He spoke of accountability, of a reckoning that awaited those who strayed too far from the light. His words, however, fell on deaf ears, met with scorn and derision by a people too consumed by their own perversions to heed the warnings of a prophet. They saw his piety as weakness, his counsel as an intrusion, and his presence as a threat to their unholy freedom. But what was this unspeakable sin that had so thoroughly gripped the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah? It was a transgression so profound, so unnatural, that it threatened the very fabric of creation. Their perversion was not merely a deviation, it was a defiant inversion of the divine order, a plunge into the depths of moral depravity. They engaged in acts that defied the natural inclinations of humanity, seeking pleasure in ways that were both physically and spiritually destructive. This was not a private matter, it was a public spectacle, a normalized behavior that permeated every aspect of their society. The sanctity of family, the purity of relationships, the very essence of human connection, all were twisted and distorted by this rampant wickedness. A societal sickness, a moral plague that had festered unchecked, leading them down a path of no return. The air itself seemed to hum with the vibrations of their transgressions, a dark energy that repelled all that was good and pure. This was the true source of their perversion, a deliberate choice to abandon the light and embrace the shadows, a choice that would ultimately seal their terrifying fate. With a heart heavy with compassion, Lot tirelessly pleaded with his people. His voice, a lone cry in the wilderness of their depravity. He warned them of the impending doom, of the wrath of the Almighty that awaited those who persisted in their rebellion. He reminded them of the natural order, of the consequences of their unnatural acts. He offered them a path to redemption, a chance to turn away from their destructive ways and embrace the light of guidance. But his pleas were met with scorn, with mockery, and with outright hostility. They ridiculed his piety, dismissed his warnings as the ramblings of a madman, and threatened him with expulsion. "Are you trying to purify us, Lot?" they sneered, their arrogance blinding them to the precipice upon which they stood. They were so deeply entrenched in their perversion that they could not fathom a life without it. Their defiance was absolute. Their hearts hardened against any semblance of truth or righteousness. They had chosen their path, and now the consequences of that choice were drawing near, a terrifying storm gathering on the horizon. But that wasn't the whole story. As the darkness deepened and the people of Sodom and Gomorrah plunged further into their abyss of perversion, a glimmer of hope, or perhaps a terrifying omen, appeared on the horizon. 3 strangers, radiating an otherworldly aura, arrived at Lot's doorstep. These were no ordinary travelers. They were divine messengers, angels in human form, sent by the Almighty with a grave mission. Lot, ever the gracious host, welcomed them, unaware of the true nature of their visit. But the news of their arrival spread like wildfire through the wicked city. The men of Sodom, consumed by their insatiable desires, surrounded Lot's home, their intentions clear and horrifying. They demanded that Lot surrender his guests to them, to satisfy their depraved lusts. Lot, in a desperate attempt to protect his visitors, pleaded with his people, even offering his own daughters to them, a desperate measure to avert a greater evil. But their wickedness knew no bounds. They were relentless, their eyes burning with an unholy fire. It was at this critical juncture that the true identity of the strangers was revealed. With a blinding flash of light, the angels struck the aggressors blind, scattering them in confusion and terror. The stage was set, the final act about to unfold, and what happened next would shock everyone. The dawn broke, but it brought not light, but a terrifying darkness. The angels, having revealed their true purpose, commanded Lot and his family to flee, to leave the doomed cities behind and not to look back. Lot, his heart pounding with a mixture of fear and faith, gathered his daughters and fled, but his wife, unable to resist the pull of her past, cast a lingering glance back at the burning cities. In that instant, she was transformed into a pillar of salt, a chilling monument to disobedience. From the heavens, a rain of brimstone and fire descended upon Sodom and Gomorrah, a cataclysmic inferno that consumed everything in its path. The earth trembled, the skies roared, and the once proud cities were obliterated, reduced to ashes and dust. The screams of the wicked were swallowed by the roar of the flames, their perversions extinguished in a fiery. It was a terrifying display of divine justice, a stark reminder that defiance of the Almighty carries an unimaginable price. The landscape was forever scarred, a desolate wasteland where once vibrant cities stood, a perpetual testament to the consequences of unchecked depravity. This was not merely a natural disaster. It was a deliberate act of divine retribution, a cleansing fire that purged the earth of its most egregious sins. The story of Lot, therefore, is not just a historical account. It is a timeless warning etched into the very fabric of existence. The ashes of Sodom and Gomorrah hold more than just the remnants of destroyed cities. They hold profound lessons etched in the very dust of history for all of humanity. The story of Lot is not merely a tale of ancient times, it is a timeless mirror reflecting the consequences of defying divine laws and succumbing to moral decay. It teaches us that true prosperity is not measured by material wealth or outward grandeur, but by the purity of a society's soul. When a community embraces perversion, when it normalizes the unnatural and celebrates transgression, it sets itself on a collision course with inevitable destruction. This narrative underscores the critical importance of upholding morality, of safeguarding the sanctity of family, and of recognizing the inherent dignity of every human being. It serves as a stark reminder that unchecked arrogance and a blatant disregard for ethical boundaries can lead to catastrophic outcomes, not just for individuals, but for entire civilizations. The fate of Lot's wife, who looked back with longing at the burning cities, symbolizes the danger of clinging to a corrupt past, of failing to fully embrace the path of righteousness. Her transformation into a pillar of salt is a chilling metaphor for the spiritual petrification that occurs when one's heart remains tethered to sin. This story, therefore, is a powerful call to introspection, urging us to examine our own lives and societies, to identify the subtle currents of perversion that may be at play, and to choose the path of truth and justice before it is too late. It is a testament to the enduring power of divine justice, a force that, though patient, is ultimately inescapable. And so, the story of Lot, a narrative steeped in ancient wisdom, echoes through the corridors of time, a potent reminder of eternal truths. It is a saga that transcends religious boundaries, speaking to the universal human experience of choice, consequence, and divine justice. We have journeyed through the glittering facade of Sodom and Gomorrah, witnessed the unwavering resolve of a prophet, and gazed upon the terrifying spectacle of divine retribution. The perversion that consumed those cities was not merely a historical anomaly, it was a chilling manifestation of humanity's capacity for self-destruction. When it abandons the moral compass, this story compels us to confront uncomfortable questions about our own societies, about the subtle ways in which decay can set in, and about the choices we make, individually and collectively. It is a call to vigilance, to guard against the insidious creep of moral relativism, and to uphold the values that truly elevate the human spirit. The wisdom gleaned from Lot's story is clear. True freedom lies not in unbridled indulgence, but in adherence to principles that foster growth, harmony, and righteousness. It teaches us that while divine patience is immense, divine justice is absolute. Let this ancient tale serve as a guiding light, illuminating the path towards a future built on integrity, compassion, and a profound respect for the sacred order of creation. For in understanding the source of perversion, we gain the power to choose a different, more enlightened destiny.